She was targeted for standing up for health freedom as a doctor and then arrested and thrown behind bars for essentially exercising her freedom of speech. Dr. Simone Gold is a 20-year board certified emergency physician, a Stanford University educated attorney, founder of America's Frontline Doctors, and also the founder of Gold Care, a medical freedom platform. And if that's not enough, she's like, I'm an attorney, I'm a doctor, I'm a founder of two companies. Why not become an author too? So now she's the author of a brand new book. It's called Selective Persecution: The Legalization of American Fascism. And she joins us now to discuss. So glad to have you with us. So much to dig into, Dr. Simone Gold. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I always love being with you, Kristi, and I've had my head down and writing a book. That's why I haven't seen you lately.
Well, that makes sense. And you have every right and excuse to do that. I have to tell you, my mother, she always loves to talk about all this kind of stuff. And I remember her early on, like even before I left, it was probably just before I left mainstream or network news, whatever you want to call it. That she was like, oh, you have to talk to this woman. She's a doctor. She's an attorney. It's just she's amazing. And so I'm so glad that actually came to fruition. That I've gotten to interview you a couple times now.
Hi,
But I just
Mom.
want to let you know, my mom's a huge fan. She just thinks like you're smart as a tack, and you are. But you've oddly enough, in today's society, being smart as a tack gets you called a conspiracy theorist, gets you targeted, huge target on your back. And for you, it ended up in finding yourself behind bars. I mean, it's unreal that this happened to you, and it serves as the inspiration for your book, Selective Persecution: The Legalization of American Fascism. And so tell me about this book. Is it just taking people through like what you went through, or what? Just tell me about the book.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote this book so that people can understand that we have a lot of components of fascism in our nation right now. That is shocking to think about. We all think we live in the greatest country on earth, and it is still the greatest country on earth. But there is really kind of a web and an infrastructure of fascism in a lot of our agencies and in a lot of our businesses that we were really unaware of. But then during COVID, it all kind of got exposed. So I was present at January 6th. I was an invited guest speaker, and I was on the Capitol grounds with a permit. And of course, the day went, completely sideways, nothing like you'd expect. And I was arrested as part of that. There was more than 1,500 people that were arrested, almost all of them exactly like me, like very nonviolent, where they were just this political speech. In my case, I was giving a health freedom speech. But our government went crazy, and our government started targeting totally nonviolent, ordinary citizens like me as violent or domestic terrorists or insurrectionists. It was just so over the top, and we endured this for 4 years. And I had to write a book about it because, as a physician who witnessed the collapse of so much truth and propaganda right during COVID, and as a lawyer who experienced the weaponization of the DOJ and the FBI against me, I really had to share this story with people. So it's really my J6 story, but every chapter kind of shows you where we are in America. Where's our DOJ? Where's our FBI? Where are the judges? How about Congress? California Medical Board? Like, are these institutions captured, in a tyrannical net? And I'm sorry to tell you that many of them are. And it reads like a legal thriller. You really can't believe this happened to an American. It sounds like it's out of the Soviet Union.
I'm reminded of seeing those videos of you in the Capitol, and it's just like you're on your phone, you're just kind of like looking around,
Walking.
like and to have handed down a sentence where you're, no probation, or you actually had to go behind bars. It's just wild. What can you tell me about that court experience? Did you
Yeah.
feel helpless? Did you feel defeated? I mean, these people were clearly weaponized against you. I mean, so
Yeah.
what did you feel like in that time?
I just want to say I'm so glad you mentioned that there's videotape of everything. Like, if you want to see what I did, like what our government came after us, it's all in the book because it's super well documented. I want the reader to say, well, what actually happened? Is it what she says happened, or is it what really happened? Or is there a difference? So there's videotape of all of it. And you can just see how peaceful I was just walking. So taking knowing that, watching those videos, reading this, reading the court transcripts, you are really struck that all of government was weaponized against individual citizens. Standing in that courtroom and hearing the prosecutor and the judge say the United States of America against Simone Gold was one of the worst moments of my life. For people like us who care deeply about the Constitution and patriotism and love America, that was excruciating to hear. To watch United States prosecutors lie, I have absolute proof, I name names. There were people, most of the prosecutors lied. Again, the proof, transcripts, evidence is all there. The judges were saying things that was inconsistent with being a judge. You had judges, not in my case, but in other cases, there were judges calling people insurrectionists. Why is that a problem? Because you're supposed to be a judge and you're supposed to be unbiased. And if the defendant in front of you hasn't been charged with insurrection, and none of them were, you as a judge are not allowed to think of them and let alone say insurrectionists. So we had so much evidence of judicial corruption of the DOJ, the FBI. It's amazing, really. Like, you can't believe it was America. And if the election had gone in a different way, when you read this book and you imagine a world where Kamala was president and all these policies happened under her, right? We know Biden wasn't in charge. You'd be so afraid for our country. So I'm so hopeful that we turn this ship around. And I think we are.
Yeah, and the first part of that comes to having the best understanding of what actually happened, and
Yes.
and lucky for people, you have it all documented in this book with your very personal experience, and as you said, you have the documents and the evidence on your side. That being said, you know, it's wild that you have Liz Cheney, who was part of the corrupt
J6
J6 committee,
committee.
pardoned by President Biden along with others. And so, with that happening, with having to sit back now and watch this corrupt judicial system trying to keep President Trump from enacting any of his goals and missions, do you have hope of there being accountability of some of these prosecutors that lied, them having to face some legal action?
Okay, so honestly, I'm pessimistic about the people who really did the most evil, really being paid. I mean, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, is, as far as I call him, mob boss in my book. I mean, he's evil. I'm sorry, but he's evil. Do I think that he's going to be called to account? I don't have any inside knowledge. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Now maybe someone like Liz Cheney, who directly lied. She directly lied under Congress. Maybe she will be. It'll be up to President Trump, Attorney General Pam Bondi. It'll be up to Kash Patel, FBI Director, and it'll be up to the District of Columbia Attorney Ed Martin. Now, all of these people understand that the government was weaponized against ordinary citizens for those 4 years. So we can hope. But what we have to do as citizens is at least be aware of what this is. We can't let this happen to our nation, even from a grassroots effort. So my book is a chance to show the average American what actually is going on. I mean, it's outrageous what's what went on.
Yeah.
The California I just want to say, like, the California Medical Board went after
Yeah.
me, Congress went after me, the New York Bar went after me. I couldn't fly. I was on a domestic terrorism watch list. I mean, it's amazing.
From all fronts. Yeah. And I want to talk about how basically you had your mouth duct taped shut. You couldn't even speak, essentially, with how social media treated. And we're going to talk about the role of big tech and all of this as well. But I just want to take this opportunity to remind folks, this book officially comes out in May, as I understand it. And I encourage folks to pre-order this book, Selective Persecution, the Legalization of American Fascism. And I really want to highlight that, you hear that a lot, like, oh, pre-order a book, but it is actually so important that you put in your order, pre-order, before it even comes out, because that is what will get more eyes on seeing the truth. When people pre-order, that helps get the book higher up on the list, rather than waiting for it to come out. And we really want it high up on that list, whether Amazon likes it or not, because that will get more eyes on it and more potentially wake more people up. But of course, we'll be talking more about that in a moment. But this whole concept of big tech, and I think I've mentioned this to you before. Anytime I myself am interviewed and people say, well, what was the final straw? Like, what made you leave, your dream job and we'll be nice and call it traditional media. And I always say it was that frontline doctors moment, that moment that you were on the steps and you were giving this speech with others. That was really the moment for me because it was so weird how all of a sudden this video, you all were banned on Facebook, banned on these social media apps, and I had colleagues that were like cheering this on and like, yeah, we can't have this misinformation. I'm like, what? A very core tenet of journalism is to be a voice for the voiceless. And right now you're cheering on someone having their mouth duct taped shut. That's not being a voice for the voiceless at all. But like, tell me what that was like not even being able to get your
Yeah.
message out.
Yeah, I have to tell you, like on the political level and on the personal level, it was really shocking and devastating. On the personal level, I really wanted to save lives. There was early treatment medicine that worked that we were not allowed to talk about, and lockdowns were very harmful for patients. Patients couldn't get like their diabetic wounds checked. They couldn't have elective surgery, so they'd be bedbound. I mean, there were so many things that were so unhealthy and lethal about the 2020 policies. So on the personal level, I needed to get that out and I couldn't. And on the political level, I couldn't believe we were losing our freedom of speech. I mean, I thought freedom of speech was sacrosanct in America, and I was petrified
Yeah.
that we were really in the clutches of tyranny. So we just got together, freedom doctors, independent doctors, and social media influencers, and we stood there and we talked directly to the American people, and they heard us. And the American people was very grateful, and that's how we formed our nonprofit, America's Frontline Doctors. And we've been busy ever since fighting for your medical freedom. And by the way, I want to invite people to aflds.org, because what we do now is we support medical freedom lawsuits, like on the transgender issue. We were the only physician organization that stood up and said, you can't be mutilating children. So that's the kind of work that we do at America's Frontline Doctors. We are independent doctors that speak truth. And because of my legal background, I have a team that also fights for the medical legal issues in the courts. It was very, very scary, I would say. It was scary for me as an American to think that we were losing our constitutional rights.
And I mean, and think about that too. I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you and many others were basically cornered into having to plead something you wouldn't have in order to save yourself, essentially. I mean,
Yeah,
tell me about that.
I, I have to. I'm so glad you brought that up. So a lot of people in the last few years who didn't know much about this are like, well, it must have been something because they're all pleading guilty. They must have really done something. Here's what you're going to learn when you read the book. They threatened people like me with 20 years behind bars. 20 years. 20 years. I don't care if you're left, right, north, south, polka dotted pink or green. That's insane. And that's the power of government over the individual citizen. What power did I, as the individual citizen, have against the whole government launched against me? 20-year felonies. It was illegal. It ultimately got thrown out by the Supreme Court, but it got thrown out after I had to make a decision to take a plea. And I never intended to take a plea. I would have gone up on the misdemeanor trespass. I mean, it's crazy. You don't prosecute political people for being at a protest for trespass, but at least trespass had some relationship to my presence. But this 20-year felony of obstructing Congress that they fabricated, and ultimately we know they fabricated because it got thrown out by the Supreme Court. I mean, so once they did that, you learned that they wanted all of the J6 defendants to take a plea because that kept the narrative going that there was some big criminal enterprise going on because all these people said that they were guilty. So it's another example of fascism, again, really spelled out in the book. Why would our government want its citizens to lie? Like, what purpose does that serve to have our citizens be dishonest? So I was forced to be dishonest.
Yeah. And then, and you said it yourself. I mean, they were charging people with felonies that for what would have in any other circumstance been a misdemeanor trespassing at best. And then there's the whole issue of, you can see on camera gates being removed, people streaming in,
Yes.
not ever even knowing there were gates there to begin with. So I mean, you could argue that it was in some fashion entrapment. Doors were
Oh,
being
yeah.
opened. It's on video. There's no contest to that.
No, for
So
sure.
with the frustration, obvious still frustration of this narrative that was counter to the truth, um, is there any hope, or have you heard any buzz about a new J6 committee to look at and discuss some of those things?
I still am optimistic that we are going to have a robust investigation into the J6 lies that the J6 Congressional Committee made and that media ran with, which destroyed so many people. It didn't destroy me because I was in a unique position and I could fight back as hard as possible. But there's 1,500 people, many of whose lives have been wrecked. Businesses, families, divorce, homes lost, children sick. I mean, unbelievable, heart-wrenching stories. I believe at this moment that the Trump administration will be looking into this. I know Kash Patel has talked about it for years. Dan Bongino's talked about it for years. Ed Martin, who's the District of Columbia attorney, he has talked about this for years. So, and by the way, he opened up a specific investigation into this 20-year felony. It's called the 1512 statute. He opened up an investigation. He said, why was the Department of Justice charging hundreds of people with a statute that got thrown out by the Supreme Court because it was wildly unrelated? So I hope, I hope we get robust answers. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I hope so, and we'll keep praying for that to be the case. So again, this book is let's bring the book up again. I want to encourage people to order this book, Selective Persecution and the Legalization of American Fascism. It's so important to connect these dots to really see what happened. You have a personal story here, and examples given, and it's just so important to have a really good understanding of this, because we need to make sure that this can never continue, ever happen again, and that we can do whatever we can to fix this. Because I mean, I think, as we said before, there's only so much that President Trump can do, which is sad because he's the president of the United States, but there's only so much he can do. I mean, especially when you have rogue judges in other states, like, for example, Tina Peters. It's a Gold Star mom is sentenced to 9 years, but since she was sentenced in the state, there's really only so much he can do. He can't pardon her at a state level. And so how do we really root this out, other than everybody, all hands on deck, grassroots, trying to fix our judicial system? But moving to another topic, wanted to talk about, because you're so passionate about this, the future of medical freedom. We are all excited about the MAHA movement. I think that's really what clinched Trump's win, is bringing those people together. They cared about those things, as well as what he had to offer. And where do you see that going? I mean, I'll tell you, it was concerning to see that article come out from RFK Jr. saying, after criticizing vaccines for so long, this article is basically like, but MMR is critical to this potential outbreak in Texas. I'm right here in Texas. I mean, so,
So let
so
me,
there's little
can I
things like
jump in?
that are concerning. Like, we weren't duped, were we?
No. Let me set your mind at ease.
Okay.
And so I've known Robert F. Kennedy Jr. now since the whole duration, since 2020, let's say. This man knows all about vaccines better than you, better than me, better than like virtually anybody that I've ever met. I myself have learned a lot from him. He did a movie some time ago that covered the MMR. He knows exactly what's what on that. Go back and read the article. The headline, which I'm guessing he didn't write and somebody else wrote the headline, does not really match what he said. He was all about freedom. He was all about choice. He does live in a political world now where he has to compromise. He's also not the president. He can't, he has to cooperate with what the president wants. And it's all about choice. He said vaccines are a person's choice. He said a couple of other things in that article. He actually said that the MMR vaccine is not what reduced the incidence of measles. He said 98% of the cases had disappeared before the shot ever showed up in the 1960s. He said that vitamin A and other vitamins are critical to doing well with measles. So the headline, in my opinion, was a little bit of clickbait, or maybe to satisfy some other political interests. And if you read it, I actually have a lot of faith in Kennedy because he spent 25 years fighting this. And you can't convince me that somebody who spent 25 years doing this is going to turn on a dime. Now, he does have to live in a political world. And I guess we're now on notice that these things can happen. But I just want you to know that the headline, in my opinion, does not really match the content of the article.
Okay. Well, thank you for making that clarification. Because yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, and I was willing to keep an open mind. And I did read the whole article, but I was still concerned with some things like, herd immunity,
He
like
did say
herd
it.
immunity was
He,
mentioned. And I was like, wait a minute, where are we? What's happening? But I think we're all a little bit testy because we've all been been through so much.
we've been
So
lied
if you,
to and
yeah,
misled. So
yeah,
I just want to say, keep your eye, you, me, everybody, keep your eye on two things: free speech, the free exchange of ideas, and fair elections. So if you have free speech, if in other words, if people like Bobby Kennedy, me, you can get the word out about these things, okay. If there's no mandates, we'll be okay. Like, we probably have to lower expectations. I don't think he can come out against vaccines. I don't even think that's his interest, if you want to know the truth. I think he's in favor of free speech, no propaganda. I think that's really where he falls. And if we have those things, Kristi, over time, we'll make good medical decisions.
yeah. I mean, because as long as we're talking about your book and the underlying message of the American fascism, I mean, that's what's happened to the medical industry. It's become so, well, let me address the king, my doctor, and see what I can and cannot do. I mean, it's really quite sick. I mean, just even being an older woman, I'll say, and that had back-to-back pregnancies that weren't exactly planned that way. But I mean, I'm 42, and so I'm going to these doctor's appointment, and just that they always lead with fear. Oh, well, you're older now. It's like, hey, I got pregnant, I can deliver. Okay, like
Yeah.
I hate that it's become this condescending exchange, which is why in large part, like me and so many others, as much as we can cut out the doctor, we end up doing that because it's
That's
just you just end up so disgusted.
so I just want to say that's why I started goldcare.com, is because you can't trust most doctors, even if they psychologically mean well. The way they're paid, they're not paid by the patient. They're paid by insurance companies. They're paid, and those insurance companies comply with Medicare rules, which is protocols. So it's very much, in a box, a protocol, a checklist, et cetera. And it's not about the patient. It's not about you. I think back to my dad's day when it was really all about the doctor-patient relationship. He was a doctor, if you didn't remember. And it's so different now. So you are correct not to trust doctors. The vast majority of doctors I don't think should be trusted. You need an independent doctor who's outside the system. That's what Gold Care is. The other thing that the medical industrial complex did wrong is they didn't teach doctors like me all about the naturopathic and dietary and nutrition and supplements. Like, we literally were not taught that. It was in a way hidden from us. And I find that offensive. I can't believe I went to school for as long as I did and I wasn't taught these things. It seems unbelievable to me. I've now learned there was a real division in America, not in other nations, but in our country. There was a legal case and something called the Flexner Report, and it really made medicine and doctors go towards pharmaceuticals and to just sort of be dismissive of the naturopathic. That division is very artificial, and it happened in America, not across the world. So Gold Care puts them back together. We have naturopathic doctors and we have medical doctors because there's no reason they should be artificially divided. So you're correct. I mean, doctors are not looking out for their patients. They're looking out for their employer.
Yeah, and I mean, telemedicine has become so common that it's just like this is a way that you can be immediately connected to someone that has your same thoughts and can truly and wants to help you, give you the informed consent, all of that. And so I love Gold Care, goldcare.com. Just please click on goldcare.com, at least take a peek and see what it's all about because there's so much you're offering on there.
Yeah,
It's wild.
we call it the
Go ahead.
medical freedom platform because we want everyone to have all this information. So you've become a member for $10. Literally, we just want you to learn. And there's medical town halls, when there's classes and lectures and all of that stuff, because we really want you to have that information. Actually, we want you not to see the doctor as much as possible.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Wow, fancy
If you
that.
need it,
Like
we've got
doctors
them.
that actually want us well. There's doctors
Yeah,
that want us to be
we do
well,
deep
and
pres
doc
we do deep prescribing classes. We get you off your prescriptions whenever possible. And we have so much information included that a lot of times people don't have to see the doctor. But when you want to see the doctor, you have independent doctors. So you've got both. But I don't, this hyper reliance on this elite class really was terrible during COVID. I don't want that. I want Americans to be able to live intelligently, freely. I mean, do you call your lawyer all the time? No. Do you call your accountant all the time? No. You call them when you need it. You make an appointment when you need it. So that's what the doctor should be. You shouldn't be getting like all of your daily information from the doctor. You shouldn't just be, bowing to the doctor. So we've kind of corrected what's gone wrong in the last, decades. And, it's fun. I mean, it's actually really fun.
Yeah.
It's fun again.
So
Make medicine
refreshing.
fun again.
Yes, yes. So refreshing. Dr. Simone Gold, you've done so much. I mean, you've essentially had to martyr yourself along with being so smart and having this platform and I mean, gosh, you just do so much. So I really want to encourage people to get your book. I'm sure it's packed with really interesting information and the warning about, we cannot let this happen again. We need to everyone on deck to get to make sure that we are not moving in this directive. The book's name is Selective Persecution: The Legalization of American Fascism, and again, it really helps when you pre-order. So make sure that you pre-order that book. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Great to see you, Kristi.